What's up, everyone? Welcome to Back to the Future, the podcast that takes a trip down Philly sports memory lane. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Before we get into anything today, I just want to say thank you. This week is the 1-year anniversary of our very first podcast here on Back to the Future. You might remember we went through the different levels of Philly fandom, kind of setting the tone for what you're going to be hearing. And I just have to say thank you. I could not be here a year later if it wasn't for you. We wouldn't have a great partner like PhillyGoat.com if it wasn't for you and all your support. So again, thank you. I know I've come a long way and grown as a podcaster in the first year. If you listen to some of those first episodes, it was definitely very scripted out, but I've kind of gotten used to riffing and going on my own. You may have also noticed that the format has changed slightly over the course of the year, where it started off, this was more of a what if, and I moved away from that because I felt as though it sort of narrowed the realm of what we could cover. So this is more of now just Philly history and taking that deep dive into the sports teams and looking at specific things and maybe not so much the what if aspect. Part of what helped that was This Day in Philly Sports History. So if you haven't done so, that's my daily podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to that and check that out. It's a quick 8 to 15 minute look at what happened that day in Philly sports. And that typically now is where I'll do a lot of the current state of Philly sports and look at what's happening, like with the Sixers, Phillies, or what have you. But be sure to check that out. And I want to save this more for those deeper dives, set up some more of the interviews, and do some of the more fun things too. I'm working on some interviews for the next few weeks, so stay tuned for that. I'm trying to get something put together for the start of the Eagles season, like an Eagles preview. So stay tuned for that. I'm also working. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to do like a live version. I don't know whether that's going to be Twitter Spaces, YouTube Live, whatever. Just stay tuned. I definitely am working on a lot of things. But just, again, I wanted to say thank you. I truly appreciate your support, and I could not be here without you. All of that being said, because of your continued support, I'm proud to announce that we do have another partner for the podcast, and that's 2008 Phils. You may have seen them on Twitter. It's a great follow. If you haven't done so, check them out at 2008 Phils. And just all things Phillies history. I've been following them for a while. It started during the pandemic, just looking at the updates from the 2008 Phillies season. And when there was no sports on, it was something I look forward to looking at every day. They've continued to grow, so be sure to check them out. And it's hard to believe it's been 15 years since that Phillies team won the World Series. But in honor of that, and to celebrate the new partnership, for a very limited time, the 2008 Phils is offering 75% off a subscription specifically for Back to the Future listeners. Wherever you're getting this, look in the description. There's a unique link specifically for Back to the Future. You get 75% off of your subscription for a limited time. Follow the link and join. And again, you should know, just like Philly Goat, I practice what I preach. I'm wearing the Philly Goat shirt now if you're watching on YouTube. And I don't throw things out there, and I don't want you to support something that I don't support yourself. Before this partnership even happened, I was a subscriber to 2008 Phils. It's like I said, the biggest Phillies email newsletter in the world. It's a must-read if you're a Phillies fan. The content is phenomenal. It's been a ton of great things for the All-Star game. There was an article, or All-Star game trivia was one of the latest posts this week, and sadly, I did not do so well. However, I did get a couple of the questions right due to This Day in Philly sports history. So there you go. There's where the connection is and where you learn stuff. But what do you get with a subscription to 2008 Phils? You get access to all subscriber posts. They have a free version, but a lot of the good stuff is behind the paywall. Well worth it. Like I said, this is something I've done before. There's a lot of good community chats on there. You get full access to the archives. So for somebody like me, it's great. I'm able to kind of go back and refresh my mind on things that happened in Phillies history. And there's just a bunch of great discussions and everything on the site. You also get, I'm sure you probably have seen me on the podcast, wear the 2008 red championship banner shirt. You get a free t-shirt out of it. 2008 Phils will follow your Twitter account if that is something you want as well. You get access to Phillies giveaway, tickets, autographs, and just other memorabilia and just Philly-centric items. All of this, because we're giving you the 75% off, $2 a month, or just pay for the full year for $20. And I mean, $20 is nothing for the content you get. I mean, the t-shirt alone is worth the $20. So go to 2008 Phils, follow the link in the description for your Back to the Future specific discount, and it's only for a limited time, so make sure you act fast. But 2008 Phils, very happy to announce them as a partner, and again, you know I stand by them if I'm going to throw them out there. I don't want to just peddle whatever, but he's a good guy, the guy that runs it, and definitely great content. You won't be disappointed. So go check out that link in the description. I'm pointing down. I'm assuming it's probably down. If it's up, then go up to the description. But go check them out, and you won't be disappointed. And like I said, the t-shirt itself, and they must use a very similar company that Philly Goat does, because the shirt itself is extremely comfortable. And that has nothing to do with anything. It's not part of the partnership. It's just a damn comfortable shirt. So go check them out. $20 for the full year gets you access to everything they have on their site and the t-shirt. All right, so we're going to stick with the 2008 Phils. And as I mentioned, we've sort of shifted the focus of this podcast to more of like a history-based thing. But we're going to focus on that 2008 team today, and specifically one man. And perhaps I could make the argument the most important piece of that team. Now, before anybody starts throwing out names, we know Jimmy, we know Ryan, we know Chase, we know Cole, we know Jason, we know Chooch, we know Lidge, we know Victorino. But maybe the possible, obviously those guys, we couldn't have won it without them, but the one part of that team who may or may have been the MVP could have been somebody different, and we'll get into that in a minute. But first, they got off to a slow start in 08, if you remember. They won the division the year before, got swept by the Rockies, and they were starting to get it together. And by the time we get hit this time, the All-Star break, they were battling with the Mets once again for first place. It was definitely fun times in Philly. I mean, we had a good baseball team, and for a lot of us, I mean, we're all Eagles first. I mean, I think unless you're a hardcore, diehard Flyers fan, I think we can all say most of us are Eagles first. But it's always fun when the Sixers and Phillies are good. Like last year with that Phillies World Series run, it was fun. And this was the Citizens Bank Park became one of the hot spots, the place to be. And I remember my wife, when we first started dating, there were times where it's like, what do you want to do on a Friday night? And instead of going to the bar, we were like, let's go buy tickets to the Phillies game. So it was a fun time to be a Philly fan, fun time to go down to Citizens Bank Park. The team was good, except one glaring exception, and it was just blatant, right in your face. And that was much like sometimes this team was, this year's team in the beginning of the year. It was that fifth starter spot. I mean, we had Hamels, you had Brett Myers, Jamie Moyer, and Kyle Kendrick. Not many people remember the fifth starter to start that season was Adam Eaton. And let me tell you, he was terrible. Absolutely terrible. I remember thinking as I was researching and prepping for this, they're going to not repeat as division champs because of Adam Eaton. I mean, going to the All-Star break, he was 3-8 with a 5.71 ERA. He was just terrible. And he just had a bad attitude. And he just had that. I talk a lot on these podcasts about punchable face. Adam Eaton still to this day has a punchable face. And when he was out there losing, he definitely had more of a punchable face than he normally does. So, needless to say, heading into the All-Star break, it was a glaring weakness. We needed a starter. I mean, offensively, that team was fine. I don't think there was. I mean, they had guys coming off the bench. You had Matt Stairs. You had, they had guys, Jeff Jenkins, Eric Bruntlett. Like, they had guys that filled certain roles, and that was fine. But they did not have a fifth starter. They had bullpen guys. You had Madsen, you had Lidge, you had J.C. Romero. They had like 7, 8, 9 was fine. But when you have Adam Eaton who can't get out of the fifth inning, you need somebody else. So rather than do that, let's just get a new starter. So that was priority list, and it was, as I was thinking back, like I just remember reading the Daily News every day back when you actually used to read the paper. You used to, I mean, that was, everybody was calling for a fifth starter. So let's travel now across the country and go out to Oakland. And at that time, the Oakland A's were a topic of conversation for trades all the time. You had Billy Beane playing Moneyball, where once guys got to the point where they were going to start making money, he was willing to trade them and bring the next guy in. So there was always a lot of big names that were on the move, but he was just that's where everybody first started to look, because they knew once guys got to a certain age or a certain point in their contract, he was going to get rid of them. This year in particular, there wasn't a ton of starting pitching help. There was a lot of rumors, but there wasn't a ton of starting pitching help on the trade wires. But there was a ton of position players. That was when Manny Ramirez went to the Dodgers, and there's just guys. I think Ken Griffey Jr. may have gotten traded. Like, there was just guys that were being traded, and a lot of big names, but not so much pitching. So the Phillies were in a unique position where there wasn't a ton of teams necessarily that had a big of need, because a lot of those guys were looking for offensive help, and the Phillies didn't need offensive help. So back to Oakland. They had a pretty good young rotation, and some of them were injured. Some of them had question marks. Some of them were inconsistent. But the three names that always stuck out, or that stuck out to me, and I was able to name these three names without even doing research, were Dallas Braden, Rich Harden, and Joe Blanton. I forget which one of them was hurt. The other guy had a ton of potential. I think Dallas Braden was the guy that had potential. Harden was the guy that was always hurt. And Blanton obviously was the guy that was very inconsistent. Of the three, Joe Blanton also was the oldest. I think it was like 26, 27. And probably the most expendable because he had the least amount of upside. So on July 17th, and I told you we're coming right up on that anniversary, the Phillies traded Matthew Spencer, Adrian Cardenas, and Josh Outman for Joe Blanton. Now, at the time, Joe Blanton had a 5-12 record with a 4.96 ERA. The scouting reports were all the same. He had potential, but he was inconsistent. To me, it was kind of a move. Maybe a change of scenery might do him well. Maybe, I don't know, he could catch lightning in a bottle. But for the most part, critics hate it, especially, like, I went back and reread some of the things, and people were like, great. I mean, the Phillies obviously didn't give up much for him, but everybody was like, oh, he's not going to be your savior. He's this, he's that. He's only going to get worse. So you may have guessed, Joe Blanton may have saved the Phillies season in 2008 and been responsible for bringing the first World Series to Philly since 1980 and ending that long drought we had of not having a title. Don't agree with me? Let's break it down a little bit more. And like I said, at the time, I was just like, it was an move, but he was not Adam Eaton. So how did it work out? Well, the rest of 2008, the Phillies battled the Mets, and they went back and forth. And just like 2007, and I'm saying this, if you're not watching on YouTube, I'm saying this with a big smile on my face, the Mets choked again. Finally, the Phillies were able to take over and win the division on September 27th because the Mets choked again. But Blanton did go into the rotation as the fifth starter. Eaton was sent down to the minors. I think they gave him like 2 shots in the bullpen and he still sucked. So they sent him down to the minors. called him up in September, but he didn't pitch. And it pisses me off because I was there that day. They gave him a ring, and they booed. Like, it was one of those things. Like, we booed Adam Eaton because we hated him. Like, first of all, why would the Phillies do that to him? Like, did they think because we got a ring, all of a sudden we'd be like, oh, Adam Eaton, we love you? No, you suck. You sucked. We hated you. So, first of all, shame on the Phillies for doing that. Second of all, the hell was Adam Eaton thinking? Why would you want to come back to just be like, hey, Rube or whoever, Gillick or whoever was in charge of the rings at that time, I'll meet you like in the box or something, or just mail it to me or something. So, I mean, shame on him for coming down to put him through that. For like, you didn't do anything to earn that ring. You stunk. You almost cost us the entire thing. So I just remember vividly being at that game because it was a school trip, and we went with a bunch of like kindergarten through 8th graders, and like trying to hold it together and not curse and whatever. But he still got a ring. Meanwhile, Joe Blanton stepped right in for the regular season. He had 13 starts. He went 4-0 with a 4.2 ERA. Not great. Like, he wasn't going to win the Cy Young, but that's a hell of a lot better than what Adam Eaton was doing. And Adam Eaton still got a ring. You should give me a ring for all my dealing with you, Adam Eaton. Anyway, regular season ended. Playoffs started. That's when Joe, the legend of Heavy B, started. In the NLDS, Phillies beat the Brewers 3-1. Joe Blanton went 1-0 with a 1.5 ERA. NLCS, they beat the Dodgers 4-1. He had no record, but he pitched 5 innings in Game 4, allowed 3 earned runs, and the Phillies were only down 3-2 when he left the game. So that offense is not a 2-run per game offense, and that was the issue with that team, much like this team with the whole runners in scoring position. They couldn't knock runners in. But Heavy B left the game and had the Phillies in position to win, which they did. So there you go. And then in the World Series, they beat the Rays 4-1. Joe pitched Game 4 again, went 1-0 with a 3.0 ERA. Oh, did I mention the bomb he hit? So obviously, by the time he hit the home run, the game was already over. But just to put a little stamp on Joe Blanton being the unsung hero of that 2008 team, he hit a home run to boot. The only hit I think he had that entire season. But I will make the argument, because I'm not going to say he was better than Hamels in the postseason, because Hamels was just lights out that entire postseason. Would have set the record, I think it was, for wins if the umpires would have just called or postponed or stopped, delayed the game where it was like Noah's Ark on the field. But I would make the argument that Joe Blanton was the Phillies' second best starting pitcher in that postseason, even more so than Brett Myers. Brett Myers had a way more memorable at bat against CC Sabathia, but I think Joe Blanton was the second best pitcher. I would say it would go Hamels, it would go Blanton, Myers, and it definitely was not Moyer. Everybody's like, oh, hometown hero, Jamie Moyer. Fine. Jamie Moyer sucked that postseason. Nothing against him. I like him. Local guy, great story, whatever. But he sucked that postseason. So there you go. The 2008 season, Joe Blanton was, I think, the key missing piece to that team. Now, his career didn't end there. Then in 2009, he pitched out of the bullpen against the Rockies. He started Game 4 of the NLCS, another game the Phillies won. He started Game 4 of the World Series against the Yankees. He was pitched 6 innings, and again, he didn't get any run support. It was 4-2 when he got pulled out. Phillies did manage to tie that game, and then Lidge blew that game in the 9th. 2010, he did not pitch in the NLDS. The NLCS, he started Game 4. Again, gave up 3 earned runs, but he left with a 4-3 lead. Phillies couldn't get the job done. So he was a big game money pitcher, and he just ate up innings. Like, he was good in the postseason. 2011, he was relegated to the bullpen because he was the fifth starter because of the four aces. That was the Hamels, Holiday, Lee, Oswalt year. But, I mean, not a bad fifth starter for you. So, I'll make the argument once again that the 2008 team does not win the World Series without Joe Blanton. So let's kind of take a look back and remember Joe Blanton fondly. Overall, he spent 5 years here in Philly, went 34-25 with a 4.47 ERA, pitched 9 games in the postseason where he was 2-0 with a 4.58 ERA. He only had one hit, but man, it was a hit, that bomb. He was ultimately traded to the Dodgers in 2012, and he kind of was like the forgotten, after the 2008 World Series, he was sort of the forgotten man because it was Hamels, and then it was Lee, then it was Holiday, then Oswalt, all those guys coming in. It was just, Joe just went out every fifth day and did what he had to do. And again, I think he was very underrated. They do not win the World Series without Heavy B. What do you think? Am I crazy? Am I giving Joe Blanton too much love because it's been 15 years and we haven't won a World Series since? Be sure to leave me a message in the comments, whatever you need to do. If you're listening on Spotify, this will be the Q&A section. So tell me what you think. Am I overrating and overranking Joe Blanton? Let me know. Be sure to like and subscribe. Tell your friends about Back to the Future. Make sure you're listening to This Day in Philly Sports History every day as well. Both are found wherever you get your podcasts. Both are also found on YouTube. For This Day in Philly Sports History, July has been the Philly Sports Most Lovable Loser Tournament. We're getting ready to head into the end. We're nearing the end of the first round. A couple big upsets so far. Make sure you check out last week's episode if you want to learn more about the Sixers and their free agents. There's also another episode before that where we go over the Philly Sports Most Lovable Loser Tournament. It's been a year. I have 44 episodes prior to this one, so go check out. If you're new, welcome. Like I said, go check out the archive. But thank you. That's really, really all I can say. Thank you for a great year. I did not think we'd be able to get to where we are now. Which means I'm only setting up higher expectations for the next year. Be sure to follow me on social media, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Jimbo_Mont. That's where you can vote in the Philly Sports Most Lovable Loser Tournament. Leave comments, whatever you need. Instagram, @PhillyJimbo. Follow me on Facebook if you can do that. But again, thank you. Be sure to tell one person about the podcast. Let me know what you think about Joe Blanton. Am I glorifying him too much, or am I giving him the right amount of love because he's not Adam Eaton, who has a very punchable face? Joe Blanton, not a punchable face. Adam Eaton, a very punchable face. Let me know what you think. But it's been 15 years, and it's been too long. So let's hope the Phillies come out of the All-Star break and go on a nice little run. There's no Mets to catch, and I don't think the Braves are going to be able to choke like only the Mets can. If you're a Mets fan, and I know there's a few of you out there that listen, sorry, but the Mets are going to Met. I heard somebody say that, and I thought it was great. The Mets are going to Met. But this has been Back to the Future. Thank you for one great, memorable year. Here's to more to come. Be sure to check out, too, the 2008 Phils link in the description. Have a great week. And then be safe out there. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.